He's the wild card of basketball.
He'll shoot you in or he'll shoot you out, but he's not going to be a wallflower.
Nick Van Exel has spent a lifetime fighting his own bad reputation.
It's just something that just ticks. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad.
He grew up watching his father choose a life of crime.
He would be riding around and snatch out the stereos, and I was riding in the car with him.
He nearly lost his mother to a shocking act of violence.
They couldn't find traces of bullets, but they knew she had been shot.
I may never see my mom alive again.
He came out of nowhere to lead a team of cast-offs to the Final Four.
He was just relentless. He drove the team.
His explosive style brought the magic back to Hollywood.
He came in the league really with something to prove.
Then he sabotaged his own career.
I just lost it. I walked up to him and I was like, "What you say? What you say?"
But Nick Van Exel drove his way back to the top.
He is really one of the great competitors that I've ever been around.
Becoming a leader on the court, while learning to make peace with the demons from his past.
I definitely had to learn that. Learned it the hard way, but I've learned it.
This is Nick Van Exel. Beyond the Glory. He's the player known as Nick the Quick.
Van Exel down the middle, spins it up and in!
A whirling dervish on a basketball court, and an athlete who plays the game like a man on fire.
He's intense. He has a passion for the game of basketball.
He's a very emotional kid, high-strung and unbelievably competitive.
Van Exel's gone. Van Exel is gone.
I have to be angry. I can't be out on the court smiling all the time and being happy-go-lucky, because that's not how I am.
Be careful. There's the tee.
Wish I was like that, but that's not how I am.
But away from the court, there lives a very different Nick Van Exel. A quiet man, admired for his friendship and generosity.
He's a very loyal person, and his friends who get in that circle usually stay there.
If he don't know you, he won't speak a word to you. But if he know you, he will give a shirt off his back to you.
I am two different people. Why? Don't have a clue.
Resolving the puzzle within himself has been the struggle of a lifetime for Van Exel. And the lessons he's learned along the way have come at a price.
The things that have happened to him in his life, I wouldn't be very trusting either.
It's like night and day, the things that I've learned. And, you know, the things that I know now, I wish I would have knew back then. You know, I probably would have been in a better situation.
Nick Van Exel Jr. grew up in Kenosha, Wisconsin, by the shores of Lake Michigan, an all-American city that mixed scenes of postcard beauty with those of urban blight.
You got the minorities and stuff like that in the inner city, and then you have the, you know, Caucasian, white America in the outer city.
It's pretty much basically family. It's pretty much all you got in Kenosha. There isn't really much to offer for jobs.
Just a small town. Everybody pretty much knew one another, and that's basically just how it was back then.
Nick was the lone child of Joyce Van Exel and her husband, Nick Sr., a former high school basketball star. As a kid, Nick tagged along to watch his dad hoop it up at the local gym.
When he was young, they were together all the time. Together all the time. And he played basketball, and he'd always take him.
But when the games were over, Nick watched his father turn from sports star to street criminal.
Knowing everybody was in the gym, he would ride around and go into people's cars and snatch out their stereos and things like that. And I was riding in the car with him. It was kind of scary for me at a young age, but I can remember that just like it was yesterday.
When Nick was 7, his father was arrested and sent to prison. To pay the bills, his mom took a job at the local Chrysler plant, leaving Nick plenty of time to fend for himself.
She worked second shift, which meant that when I got home from school, I would probably see her maybe 30 minutes before she took off to work. So it turned me into a loner, you know, not having my dad there, then my mom always gone, you know, working.
While Nick's father was in prison, his parents' marriage ended. When Nick Sr. was released a few years later, he left his family and moved from Wisconsin to Georgia.
He loved his dad.
Years went by. Then one day, Nick's dad called him on the phone and offered him a plane ticket to visit.
He called and just out of the blue and said he wanted to see me or whatever. So I got really excited. He said he had a plane ticket for me to come down to Georgia, and you know, my grandfather, he took me to the airport in Milwaukee, and when we got there was no plane ticket. That really hurt my feelings a lot. And I said, if I ever get in a situation like that, I would never ever do that to a kid of mine.
Jumps it left to Nicky Van Exel. Nicky Van Exel putting on a show.
Though abandoned by his father, Nick inherited his passion for basketball. He became a hotshot in Kenosha's small fry league. For Nick and his friends, Myron Glass and Curtis Turner, basketball was their bond and their brotherhood.
Growing up without their father, you know, it's gonna leave a hole or a gap in any person. I don't care who you are. So we look to each other for you know, a lot of guidance.
I treated him like he was a brother, you know. You know, forget the negativity. Let's go with the positive things of life.
Nick's talent paid off when he was offered a scholarship to St. Joseph's High School in Kenosha. But when Nick got there, he felt out of place among more affluent classmates.
They were rich, they were driving the cars, they had the credit cards, and me, I didn't have any of that.
Very quiet individual, kept to himself. Nicky had to be spoken to first to try to get that out of him.
You're thinking everybody's looking at you, you're thinking everybody's gonna try to make fun of you once you make one little mistake.
Uncomfortable in class, Nick was a poor student. But on the basketball court, he flourished under freshman coach Ray Knight, a hard-nosed taskmaster who believed in Nick and went the extra mile to prove it.
You'd have to pick him up to take him to school or get him places, because at that time, the family life and the family background weren't very supportive of him.
He was a strict disciplinarian, but one thing about Coach Knight, he'd always invite the guys down to his house. His kids were great with me. On the court, you really didn't like him much, but off the court, he was a great guy to be around.
Coach Knight was like Bobby Knight. If you could listen to what he would tell you to do, he made you a great player.
Nick was becoming just that. He led St. Joe's to the state finals 2 years in a row and became the second leading scorer in Wisconsin's history. By the time Van Exel graduated from St. Joe's in 1989, he was an all-state star and a hot college prospect. After 17 years in Kenosha, Nick was ready to hit the road where trouble would be waiting.
The worst 2 years of my life.
He's got nobody that he could depend on, and it disintegrated on him.
One teacher told me I would probably end up somewhere dead in the gutter.
After leading his high school team to the state finals, Nick Van Exel was the toast of Kenosha, Wisconsin. But poor grades kept him from enrolling at a four-year college nearby. Instead, Nick journeyed to Trinity Valley Junior College on the hard-scrabble plains of Central Texas.
I wanted to get away from Kenosha. I wanted to not go to the same schools everybody else was going to. I wanted to go off and try to do something on my own.
But racial conflicts permeated Trinity Valley. On the court, the players fought opponents with a fury. When the games were over, they fought each other.
It was like the black guys were here and the white guys were there. Some of the white guys used to hang with us and vice versa. But then there were some white guys who just didn't want to have anything to do with us.
Depressed and lonely, Nick called his mom and asked to come back home. Joyce told her son to tough it out.
He wanted to, like, drop out, didn't want to go back. I said, if you come home, you see how I'm working hard, you will have to do this too.
I would always call her and please let me come home. She wasn't having it.
I talked to him, and I mean, I talked to him. let him know, you know, this doesn't happen to everybody. This is your chance. And I guess at the last minute, he woke up because he didn't come home.
Desperate to leave Trinity Valley, Van Exel hit the books, earning 32 credits in one semester to transfer to the University of Cincinnati. Arriving in May of 1991, he went to school all summer to qualify for a basketball scholarship, making ends meet by sleeping in the gym.
He had a vision in his mind as to what he wanted, his goals in life, and he never lost sight of those goals.
He made a lot of sacrifices to get that done, and I mean, not a lot of guys going to sleep in a gym all summer so they can go to class and do what they need to do.
Cincinnati head coach Bob Huggins was notoriously tough to play for. But when basketball season began, he and Nick discovered that they shared a fiercely competitive drive.
Both of us are kind of out for the same thing. I don't think people realize Nick's tremendous desire to win.
Throw ahead to Van Exel. He'll cut it loose. Watch out!
Hugs used to always say, "But if I had a piece of pie and there was one piece left, what do you think would get that pie?"
Van Exel.
And we all just sort of looked around. We knew it was Nick.
Van Exel, what a move by Van Exel! Look at Van Exel hanging in the air. Van Exel takes it right to the hoop.
With Van Exel running the show, the Bearcats took off.
Blocked by Blunt. Oh, his second big one of the half. Van Exel.
They finished the 91-92 season with a record of 27-2.
That's his second of the game. He's got both Bearcat threes. And
then they blasted through the NCAA tourney all the way to the Final Four.
Look at Van Exel. In my estimation, Van Exel's the man.
He went from a youngster at Trinity Valley that wouldn't say two words to a kid that would stand up in front of his teammates and tell them the way it was because he wanted to win.
He couldn't be any hotter going into the Final Four.
That was the biggest thing that could have happened to me. I think that was the biggest thing that probably will happen to me as far as I'm concerned.
Van Exel had come out of nowhere to put Cincy and himself on the map. But one night while watching a TV show about abandoned children, a ghost from his past returned to haunt him.
My dorm phone rings, and, you know, I'm crying at this time because it was so sad. So I'm sitting there crying, and I'm, hello, and it's my dad on the other end. I barely could talk. The story is about the little kid, you know, finally meeting up with his dad again, and that's exactly how it happened. You know, my dad called out of nowhere while I'm watching that show.
Stunned to hear from his father after years of silence, Nick invited him to Cincinnati, hoping to rebuild their relationship. But in the end, Nick says, his own bitterness and suspicion proved too strong to overcome.
It seems like you have a certain motive at that point, you know, knowing that maybe I have a chance to play in the NBA, knowing that maybe you have a chance to get yourself a nice house, to get yourself a nice car. It just didn't sit right with me.
Why are you showing up now? Why are you here now? I wasn't here when I needed you.
It's kind of hard for me to just open up to him and be loving to him when I should. And it's still tough for me right now to this day. I just haven't put it in my heart to just open it up fully.
Instead, Van Exel channeled his emotions onto the court. He led the Bearcats back into the NCAA tourney the next season and figured to be a top pick in the upcoming NBA draft.
I started to read the magazines, the publications, and saying that I was one of the top guards, you know, in the country.
But away from the friendly confines of Cincinnati, Nick began to display his resentment toward authority. At a workout in Seattle, he clashed with Coach George Karl. Then he skipped workouts in Charlotte, twice. By draft day 1993, Van Exel's reputation was in free fall.
Nick had been very comfortable and secure in the University of Cincinnati. Now he's out and he's got nobody that he could depend on, and it disintegrated on him.
On draft day, 28 NBA teams passed Van Exel by. But while others saw trouble, Lakers GM Jerry West saw a diamond in the rough.
It really doesn't matter where you're drafted. That's not even important. It's what you do once you're drafted.
The Los Angeles Lakers selected while we were away Nick Van Exel, the excellent point guard out of Cincinnati.
I said, no matter where I go, what team I go to, I'm going to succeed, I'm going to be successful, and I'm going to be happy. And to be drafted by the Lakers, that was unbelievable for me. From Kenosha, Wisconsin to L.A., you know, you couldn't ask for anything more.
Nick Van Exel was on his way to Hollywood, the beginning of a beautiful marriage.
Van Exel, yeah, he got it away from Oakley. Live under the shack. Oh!
And an ugly divorce.
You don't do your family like that, you know, your so-called family.
If we would have been somewhere with no one around, he probably would have wanted to kill me.
Nick Van Exel came to Los Angeles in 1993 to join a team whose fortunes were more dire than his own. Following Magic Johnson's retirement from AIDS 2 years earlier, the once proud Lakers were in disarray. For Van Exel, it was just the challenge he'd been aching for.
They were in need of a point guard, and Nick was in need of a team that wanted him.
From the start, Van Exel electrified the Lakers.
How did he make that shot?
He scored 1,000 points as a rookie, hit 6 threes in one game,
Throws it up and throws it in.
and revived the spirit of Showtime in L.A.
With a lot of antics I would do, as far as, you know, the boxing, the little dances, just creating a vibe that LA was used to.
Nick had a way of stirring up the crowd, you know, when he would make outstanding plays. He, you know, liked that, and the crowd liked it.
If you have one of those guys on your team, you're going to see an awful lot of kids walking around with jerseys on that bear that player's name.
By Van Exel's second season, he was the charismatic leader of a team on the rise, guided by Coach Del Harris.
Van Exel all the way.
Ferocious in the clutch, Van Exel was at his best when the game was on the line.
When he has the ball in his hand and the shot clock going down, he's not going to pass it. He's going to take the big shot.
Nick can get the ball with 1.5 seconds left and make something happen.
He fires and the count of it goes. It wins! It wins! It wins!
Van Exel drove the Lakers into the '95 playoffs.
Lakers all the way.
Led them to a first-round rout of Seattle.
He scored.
Then hit an astonishing game winner in round 2 to keep the Lakers' hopes alive.
3/10 of a second.
If I have to take that shot, I don't hesitate to take it. You know, it's a 50-50 chance it's going to go in or not, but if you don't take it, you know it's not going to go in.
Van Exel's fearless style put the Lakers back on the map and earned the esteem of legendary Laker Jerry West.
Coach Del Harris, assistant.
He was my favorite Laker by far, because I could sort of identify with his desire to excel.
Jerry West was a guy who tell you how it is, you know, tell you straight up. Wouldn't really sugarcoat anything. He went to bat for me several times in LA, and I really appreciate that.
I thought we had found a player that was going to be there for 10 or 15 years. I rooted for him so much because I saw the rough edges going away.
Van Exel tried to return the favor. As the Lakers charged toward the playoffs in 1996, he and teammate Eddie Jones asked Magic Johnson to come out of retirement and rejoin the team. But instead of lifting the Lakers toward a title, Magic's return seemed to disrupt their chemistry. The Lakers began to flounder, and Nick found himself battling Magic for control of the team.
All of a sudden, you know, Magic started saying that he wanted the ball a little bit more. So if Magic gets the ball a little bit more, that means Nick's not going to have the ball much more.
Magic's natural competitive nature came to the front to be a little bit more in charge of what was going on. It didn't work really for our team at that time.
Boy, this guy's got a short temper.
As the Lakers stumbled, Nick's frustrations mounted. One fateful night, after drawing a technical foul from referee Ron Gerritsen, his anger boiled over.
I just lost it. I walked up to him. I was like, "What you say? What you say?" I'm yanking away from the manager, from the equipment manager, and my yanking was bumped him. The equipment manager grabbed me. I tried to yank away from him, and when I yanked away from him, he was right there.
Van Exel's blow-up was front-page news. He was suspended for 7 games. The damage to his reputation would last longer.
I paid for it, and I'm probably still paying for that right now.
He made a mistake, but what they made it sound like it was something that it was just going to continue, and, you know, they should throw him out of the league.
I'm sure it's something that he wished that would have never happened, because referees have memories, and they don't want anyone to show them up, that's for sure. And I look at Nick, and to me, that was sort of the start of things that went wrong in Los Angeles.
After the season, Jerry West retooled the team. He made a trade for the rights to a high school guard named Kobe Bryant. Then he landed the biggest catch of all, free agent center Shaquille O'Neal. Just like that, the Lakers went from underdogs to big dogs.
We had the most dominant force in the game in Shaquille O'Neal. It looked like to me it was a match made in heaven. It didn't turn out that way.
With Shaq in the middle, Van Exel was no longer the freewheeling floor leader of old. As the Lakers struggled to find their groove, tensions grew between Van Exel and the Lakers' mild-mannered coach, Del Harris.
There's a lot of pressure that was going on in Los Angeles, and Nick had to, you know, take a lot of heat, you know, in any time that we lost, and so did the coach, of course.
Ryan Russell on his way to the hoop.
In the 1997 playoffs against Utah, the Lakers fell short, as Van Exel argued with Harris in front of a national TV audience.
Quotes went up, you know, Nicky exploded again.
We had a lot more good times than we had bad times, you know, just unfortunately the bad times were the times, you know, on TV.
The irony of the whole thing is I had always wanted Nick to like me. I just never figured out how to get it done.
Things looked brighter when the Lakers got off to a hot start the next season, sending 4 players to the NBA All-Star game, including Van Exel. But Nick's fiery disposition kept him in hot water.
It seemed like there was always some problem, something that was under his skin, something that he was upset about. And when that's the case, people eventually say, you know what, it isn't worth the trouble.
The Lakers demolished Seattle and Portland in the first 2 rounds of the '98 playoffs to advance to the conference finals and a return match with the Utah Jazz.
Everybody expected us in LA to win a championship. We just weren't clicking, you know, as a team.
The end came fast and hard. Utah humiliated the Lakers with a 4-game sweep.
And the Utah Jazz going to the finals.
9 days after the '98 season ended, Nick was traded to the lowly Denver Nuggets. His days running Showtime were over.
We didn't trade him to get a better player in return, because we knew we weren't going to get a better player. But really, it was addition by subtraction.
He was definitely going to send me away to a team where I wouldn't be a factor. I wouldn't be a threat to the Lakers. And Denver was definitely that team.
Van Exel says he was resigned to the idea of a trade, but when it came without any advance warning, it left a sour taste.
Yeah, we're going to move you to Denver. Okay, I can take that. That's a big difference than just saying, you know, a phone call from your agent saying they shipped you to Denver.
He should have felt bitter, but as bitter as he was, I was bitter too, because it should have never gotten to that point.
That's what made it so tough for me, that, you know, asking, am I going to get moved, and they're steady saying no, just like going to the airport and there's no ticket.
Nick Van Exel's career was at a crossroads. Soon he'd be facing a crisis of life and death.
Once I get on that plane, that's when it really sunk in, because I'm like, man, you know, I may never see my mom alive again.
We gotta clean her up before Nick gets here, because he can't see her like this.
After 5 years with the Los Angeles Lakers, Nick Van Exel was exiled to the Denver Nuggets, a terrible team desperate for a leader. At first, Nick threatened not to go. Then he changed his mind.
If I get hurt and crushed and devastated, just like the next person. Once the smoke cleared, it took me a couple days to say, wow, you know, that's what I asked for.
Through the opening quarter, there's McDyess again.
Van Exel answered the call. In the 1999-2000 season, he was a top 10 player in points and assists, turning the Nuggets into a team on the rise.
Van Exel for 2. Oh, man, it's in overtime.
He was the leader of that team. All that team I just named, he was the leader.
And how good does it feel for Nick Van Exel?
I went there to try to help that franchise get on the right track. And we did for a minute. We were steadily improving from where they had come from, and we were getting better.
In March of 2000, Denver general manager Dan Issel rewarded Van Exel for his efforts with a $71 million deal. The NBA Max.
It made me happy financially, and I tried my best to make him happy by my on-court production. We weren't winning the way I was in LA, which was expected, but, you know, everybody saw improvement. We were getting better and better and getting closer to, I guess, knocking on that door.
But by Nick's third season with Denver, trades and injuries were tearing the team apart. When the 2001 playoffs began, Van Exel could only look on as his former team, the Lakers, marched toward their second straight NBA title.
I knew every year that they were going to the playoffs, that they would have a shot at winning a championship, and I was going to be sitting at home watching them and wondering what could have been.
By the summer of 2001, Nick had made his off-season home in Houston, Texas, and was urging his mother to join him there. But Joyce Van Exel had been punching the clock at the Chrysler auto plant for 28 years, even moving from Kenosha to Indianapolis to keep her job. 2 years from retirement, she told Nick she wasn't going to quit before her time.
I told her she didn't have to work anymore, to sit back and relax. She was like, nah, you know, I've been working all my life. But that was her main goal, was to work 30 years at Chrysler and to finish that.
She had 28 years at a company. You don't just give that up just because your child asks you to. I have too much time invested. I don't want it just because he's doing what he's doing. I'm a very independent person.
On June 6th, 2001, Joyce Van Exel was walking home from work when she was approached by a stranger and shot 4 times at point-blank range.
Someone called and said my mom had been shot. So I'm thinking it's a joke or whatever, you know, not my mom. Why somebody shoot my mom? They didn't tell me how serious it was. They were saying she had been shot.
Nick rushed to catch a plane to Indianapolis, where his mother lay in a hospital, fighting for her life.
Once I get on that plane and get in those clouds, that's when it really sunk in, because I'm like, man, you know, my mom could be up here, you know, before I get there. You know, I may never see my mom alive again.
Nick arrived at the hospital to find his mother barely conscious, and with doctors fearing the worst.
Her whole face is swollen, and she's just, she noticed me when I came in, which was unbelievable. That's how strong she was. She was just shaking and just saying, Nick, I'm glad you came. And it was just hard for her to breathe, and but she was focused on everything around her. She knew she could comprehend everything. And I couldn't cry because I didn't want her to see me cry at the time, because I was trying to be her strength. But it was tough, man. That was real hard.
Despite bullet wounds in her chest and her face, Joyce Van Exel stunned everyone by surviving. She says that Nick's presence helped pull her through.
And he says, you're getting out of here. And I didn't say anything because I was, you know, like in and out. But he was there for me. He really was.
It was basically 50-50. She was still struggling to breathe. You know, every time she would try to swallow to catch her breath, it was just like a big old, you know, gut for her to do that. And to see her pull through it, you know, that was just unbelievable for me.
The man who shot Joyce Van Exel was never found. Once Nick's mom grew strong enough to leave the hospital, Nick moved her from Indianapolis to Houston and bought her a home near his own.
She still wanted to go back and finish her 30 years. I said, Mom, you're not going back to work. I somehow forced her to beg her to come live with me. Well, not live with me. She can't live with me. I won't let her live with me. But live near me.
Now we can sit down and really talk. You know, he's here more. I see him more now, and I think that's good. We're bonding now.
Nick Van Exel's life had come full circle.
What a night he's having.
His checkered reputation would soon come back to haunt him.
Next thing you know, I mean, he was this bad guy again.
If you have players that will be problems, then you shy away from that.
It was a fear, like, Dale is there. They know our relationship.
Nick was doing everything in his power to get traded.
When Nick Van Exel began his 4th season with the Denver Nuggets in the fall of 2001, he was discouraged about his future and bitter about his past. When Dallas assistant coach Del Harris offered to shake hands after a game, Van Exel walked past him without a word.
Didn't want to talk to Del because I felt that he was part of the reason why I was going out of LA. He said, "Can you just let it go," or something like that. And I just walked by him. I didn't say anything to him, didn't shake his hand or anything.
Didn't change my life, and he wasn't on our team anymore. But I had always wanted Nick to like me, and so that meant he still didn't.
Facing another hopeless season with the Nuggets, Van Exel made no secret of his desire to be traded to a better team. But his public complaints and high salary made him all but impossible to move.
It's taken a lot of my time with GMs kind of to protect him, you know, and justify him not only as a player but as a person.
He said, "Well, Nick, why don't you just shut up? You're making $70 million." But he was saying, "I want to make $70 million and win."
His reputation hurt his tradability, and it's hard enough to coach. And if you have players that you think will be problems or don't want to be coached, then you shy away from that.
Just before the trade deadline in February of 2002, Van Exel learned that the high-flying Dallas Mavericks were willing to make a trade to get him, but only on the recommendation of the Dallas coach who knew Nick best, Del Harris.
It was a fear, like, you know, Del is there. They know our relationship and how it has been in the past. But, you know, my agent was saying, well, Del is your biggest backer. You know, he's the guy who's pushing the trade.
I was willing to block out the 20 or 30 bad days we might have had in 4 years and think about the 1,000 good days that we had. I felt like that, in all things considered, it was worth the risk because he's obviously got great skills and he's a good guy.
In February of 2001, Dallas made the trade for Van Exel.
When they called and said he was going to Dallas, he was happy. He was like a little boy in a candy store.
For Van Exel, the trade to Dallas did more than salvage his career. He says that Del Harris's surprising display of loyalty changed his outlook on life.
I had to come to grips with a lot of things with myself, not really wanting to listen to anybody, not really wanting anybody to tell you what to do.
He said, "I just want you to know, if I ever did or said anything, whatever it might have been at any time to hurt you, then I'm sorry." And I'm sorry that ever happened.
That gesture that Del Harris made is a gesture that I'll always remember because there are a lot of people in my life who probably I need to mend the fence with. And with Del doing that with me, you know, it helps me to get closer.
Nick was grateful to move to Dallas for another reason. 12 years earlier, he had fathered a son, Nick III. Though the relationship between Nick and the child's mother didn't last, father and son remained close. Now, with Nick III growing up in a Dallas suburb, they were finally living in the same town together.
I've always been a part of his life, which is something that I think is important for him and me, you know, knowing from where I came from and how it was tough for my mom and not having my dad around.
Always said he would never abandon his son. He's there for his son. He wasn't going to do what his dad did to him, to his son.
He's a great kid. You know, he's totally opposite the way I was, which is I'm just so thankful for that he doesn't have that bad attitude and things like that. Our relationship is more like I'm his big brother. He can talk to me about things. Then when I have to be a father, I'm going to be a father.
Van Exel seems to have found his home on the court as well. He's an explosive spark plug for a team that has set its sights on an NBA title.
He's on the court at the end of the games. No matter who starts, it's who finishes. Nick Van Exel is on the court.
Crowd is on its feet. Nick Van Exel feels.
My dreams are definitely still to win an NBA championship. That's the ultimate goal right now.
Friends say that Nick Van Exel has mellowed since coming to Dallas, and that his days of controversy on the court may be a thing of the past. As to whether Nick will ever fully redeem his past reputation, only time will tell.
There's still people out there that probably don't believe in him. The reality is, every day you got to prove yourself.
He don't get the proper credit he deserves in this game of basketball because of all the other things that goes around Nick Van Exel. But
the Nick Van Exel I know is a hell of a person.
He is seeking to become the best kind of person that he can be, and we're all works in progress, and I really have high expectations for him.
He's complex, he's complicated, he's a tremendous player, and I think a good guy.
The Dale Harris incident and the Ron Garrison incident, those are going to be what people remember. But the people that are close to me, the people that know me, I just want them to remember me as a person that worked hard to get where he was at. It's a person that, you know, never gave up,